If you feel ready to move on from dumbbell squats or kettlebell squats and you want to try something a little bit heavier like a back bar squat in the squat rack, then this tutorial will show you how to set up with the right equipment and how to execute the move perfectly with good form. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first. Safety. The last thing you want is to cave under a heavy bar loaded with weight and injure yourself. So that's why it's really important to set the arms at the right position in the squat rack. That's really going to give you the fail-safe that you need so that you can lift with confidence knowing that there's no way that you can hurt yourself. So you want to set the arms low enough so you can actually squat with full range of motion without the bar hitting the arms, but not so low that they're of no use to you. If you get stuck at the bottom of a squat and you realize that you can't push yourself back up, just let the bar roll off your back and let it hit the arms. Don't worry if it makes a really loud noise. We're in a gym, everyone expects there to be some noise. It's better than getting injured, trust me. Now you can set the bar at the right height. So you want to place the hooks so that the bar will be at shoulder height. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am going to take the arms off so that you have an unobstructed view, but you just make sure you keep the arms on. And now you're ready to get into your starting position. Safely place the bar onto your back, you want to make sure that you find the center of the bar. That's going to make sure that the weight's evenly distributed. Then you're going to grip the bar just a little wider than shoulder width, and you'll see that by the grooves on the bar itself. Now step into the bar and let it rest on the fleshy part of your traps, not too high on your neck and not so low that it rolls off your back. Then simply lift the bar off the hooks by standing up tall and taking a step backwards. Now I'm not going to lie, this will probably feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, especially if you're new to this exercise, and you may actually get a little bit of bruising and soreness in the traps for the next few days after, but don't worry, it's totally normal and this will ease the more conditioned you become. If it does bother you though, you can use a squat sponge or a rolled up towel for a bit of extra padding. Now everybody's squat is going to look slightly different depending on their height, their leg length, their hip width, so I'm just going to show you what works for me, but you might want to make some tweaks and find what feels most comfortable in your body. So I like to take my feet just a little bit wider than hip width and then point the toes out slightly. And I'll tell you why I like to do this a little bit later on. But first, let's talk about spine integrity, because this is what's going to protect you from hurting your lower back, but also it'll make you much stronger in this movement too. Now, a squat is a compound move, meaning it uses multiple muscle groups. So your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, and even your core. But the stability through this move really comes from your core strength. Obviously, it's not something that you'll notice as much if you're using just like dumbbells or kettlebells, but once you start loading heavy weights onto your back and you're axially loading your spine, you really notice this. So here's the most important thing about your squat: posterior pelvic tilt. Don't anteriorly tilt your pelvis. That's where your core splays out and your lower back curves, and it's just a recipe for a back injury. And you know, this is pretty much how most fitness influencers do their squats, which is mind-blowing to me. Instead, what you want to do is a slight posterior pelvic tilt. So just imagine you're drawing an imaginary belt buckle up towards your belly button and your spine stays nice and neutral, and that allows you to really keep the core tight and flat as well as contract the glutes, or squeeze your butt cheeks. In this move, you're really bracing the core as if someone's punched you in the guts and you tense to protect yourself. This position is the safest and strongest position when you're axially loading your spine and doing a squat. So make sure that you do this at the top of every single rep. So slight PPT, brace that core, neutral spine, squeeze those glutes, and now you're ready to squat. And like any lower body movement, here at Strong Curves, we really want to target the glutes rather than the thighs. Remember how I told you we wanted to point those toes out? Well, here's why. When we have a wider stance with our feet and we point the toes out, it allows our hip to open up more. And so that when we squat down, we're actually able to utilize more of the glutes. This also forces our torso to be more upright, as opposed to having a narrow stance with our toes pointing forward and our chest caving forward as we squat. That's actually how most male trainers will teach you how to squat. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Of course, that's perfectly fine form also, but it does accentuate the thighs more so than the glutes. So it all comes down to what your goals are. So the idea is to drop down into more of a natural squat, let those knees come out and track the toes, keeping that torso upright, chest up, and really bracing that core throughout. Now, as you come down into the bottom of the squat, you're essentially breaking at the knees and the hips at the same time. I want you to imagine like your hips are dropping in between your heels. And when you come to the bottom position, you want your thighs to be parallel to the ground. All of your weight, all of your energy should be grounded in the feet. So really dig through those heels. And also, don't just dump down into your hips like a floppy jellyfish at the bottom. We still want to have that core integrity. So you're still bracing your core really strong at that bottom position. So you have control. You should be able to pause for a moment. And then when you're ready, you're gonna push through the heels back up to standing. Again, slight posterior pelvic tilt. Make sure that core is nice and tight, and then squeeze those glutes hard at the top. So now you know how to perfect the form of a squat. Let's talk about your breathing. This really does go hand in hand with keeping your core tight and braced. So from the starting position with a slight posterior pelvic tilt and your spine neutral, you're going to take a deep inhale and lock it down. So literally hold that breath in. And then you're going to descend to the bottom of the squat on no breath. Then when you dig the heels in and come back up to standing, you can exhale. Don't rush through this move, especially when you've got heavy weights on your back. And I recommend that you just start with the bar, which is 20 kilos at first, and then slowly add some weight over time. But if you feel like you can't manage your breathing, if you feel like your core integrity is gone, if you're feeling it in the lower back, or if you're dumping at the bottom of your reps and you're just hanging out in your hip joints, then you want to scale back on the weight. Remember, form over ego. It's not about lifting as heavy as you possibly can. It's about learning how to master the move and then incrementally add more weight as you get stronger. So happy squatting, and I'll see you in another video.